obviously the risk factors are poor bone stock, mechanical stress risers, and I think with the advent of robotic assisted surgery, I've had 2 pin fractures so far, one in the tibia and one in the femur, and these are probably the ones that really need to be concerned about. If your surgical technique is poor, such as this particular patient here, where you can see a very large type 3 notching, this is asking for trouble, especially in an osteoporotic patient, and the pin sites pose new problems for all of us. So no new technology comes without its risks and without its problems, and we all have to embrace all of them as we go ahead. I'm not so much going to be discussing the intraoperative fractures as we may get while trying to reduce a very tight knee in which the medial side has not been released properly, or if the patella has not been everted in someone who's got a patella baja. I'll leave those aside. We'll talk about the fractures that we need to look out when we're doing and seeing them in the post-operative period. So as in the hip, there are only 2 determinants. How is your component stable, and do you have good bone stock, both in terms of quantity and quality? And that is exactly what is going to understand and determine whether you fix it or whether you replace it. So Chetan alluded to this unified classification system, and it's more so-called the unsolved question where we really need to answer whether should we fix them or whether should we replace them or whether we should do an arthroplasty, and we have a myriad of options on both sides. So we're going to look at 3 situations: a loose prosthesis, poor bone stock, and compromised collaterals. So that's your type 3, and here we have a case in view, a 16-year-old TKR, and as one can see, there is a very low distal fracture, there is a loose contained patella, and this requires a conversion to a hinge prosthesis, which was the MAC prosthesis, and we've used stimulant beads along with that for control of infection. What are the important aspects here? One is that we've done a hinge prosthesis. Second, we've restored the patellar defect by using 2 mm rebar screws and putting a new patella on. The key here is to use a straight stem, and you have to have a stem which is 125 millimeters long and which is fully cemented. What is important and critical here, if you're planning to do a replacement, is that you should paint and drape both lower limbs, because you need to get the limb length correct, and second, you also need to get the rotation correct. So how do you get the rotation proper? You try and mate the patellofemoral joint in flexion around 100 degrees and in extension, mark it, and then you select the average between the 2 marks, which will then allow you good patellar tracking. And of course, you have to have a cemented stem which is at least 125 millimeters, and use a straight stem because that will prevent a flexion contracture. So when you have a poor bone stock, what sort of stem should you use? That is the next aspect. Do not use a fully porous coated stem or a compressed device. These are likely to fail, and use a cemented stem which is at least 125 millimeters in length. So this was one patient that I got referred. Again, here the problem was that the surgeon did a distal femoral replacement for a periprosthetic fracture, but the stem length was inadequate, and as what one would expect, the stem started bending, and this required even larger revision. The next case in review, an 83-year-old lady, rheumatoid, osteoporosis, used to smoke previously, had a left TKR in 2000, has got lumbar arthrosis with scoliosis. She had a supracondylar fracture which was fixed about 3 years ago, and she presented with pain. So this was her fixation. As you can see here, that there's partial healing of her supracondylar femoral fracture. There's osteolysis which is happening there. There is no infection, and what she has is a very stiff knee. In these particular aspects, again, what you need to do is take down everything, remove and resect the distal fixation which has been done, and then replace it with a hinge prosthesis along again with a straight cemented stem, which helps you bring back the correct outcomes. So the next pearl here is that you should resect malunions, remove all scar tissue, because scar tissue will not allow your knee to bend, and it's really important to do a very radical resection of the scar tissue and release the collateral so that you can open a knee envelope. Situation number 2, a loose prosthesis, good bone stock, compromised collaterals. So all of them will not require a distal femoral replacement. And here I have a 56-year-old lady who had a motor vehicle accident 3 months following her total knee replacement, and this is the picture that you get. So when you go intraoperatively, you can expose the fracture. Now you need to build around the available bone. So the use of trabecular metal cones and sleeves are very useful. These will allow very good osseointegration, and the treatment for her was to reduce the fracture of the condyles over the trabecular metal cone which was there. And then once we had done that, all that you need to do is to go ahead and do a rotating hinge prosthesis for her, and depending upon the collateral stability, you can use a hinge or you can use a varus valgus constraint type of design, use a long stem, and then augment it with the 2 small plates just to hold it down. And this is what she was 5 years later. Of course, she didn't come for any problem with the revision, but she had another fall and had a minimally displaced patellar fracture which was treated conservatively, and this is how she did. Third situation, you have a stable prosthesis, good bone stock, undisplaced fracture. So this is probably the type 1 fracture, and these can be treated non-operatively, but mind you, no periprosthetic fracture in my treatment protocol today has non-operative treatment, because these are associated with a very high rate of malunion and non-union. So this lady got referred to me with a type 1 fracture, and her initial x-rays showed no displacement. She was living in an assisted living type of a facility, and she had a fall 8 months later, and then had presented with a non-union with an extremely loose prosthesis and could not walk at all, and again she required a distal femoral replacement with a rotating hinge prosthesis. So fix them and early mobilize them with the principles that have been discussed before. Scenario number 4, stable prosthesis, satisfactory bone stock, but now we have a displaced fracture. So here I think, as Dr. Vijay alluded to, you need to know your prosthesis and understand whether it is a CR or a PS. If it is a PS, then obviously you have to do a plating, or sometimes you can do an antegrade nailing. But if you have a CR, then you can put in a nail, and he has absolutely gone through all the principles as to how you should do the nail with a special type of nail. So the determinants when you have good bone stock and a displaced fracture is that you need to know the type of prosthesis, you need to know the femoral boast, you need x-rays of the contralateral limb to show the sagittal plane bowing, you need to look at the quantity of bone in the distal fragment, you need to look at the quality of bone, and these are the determinants that you want to do. If at all anyone is planning to nail a periprosthetic fracture, there is a good paper that has been published about 10 years ago which gives you a compatibility guide of fixation with the retrograde IM nail which is available. Of course, I'm sure this will need revision now because nails have grossly improved in the last 10 years, but this gives you a decent opinion on the same. So for all the people who are doing a lot of these fractures, please do understand that if you're doing a nail, your reaming may damage the PCL, so you may need to upsize the poly or change the constraint. So just don't nail it. Try and make sure that you also keep the appropriate poly which is available. If the fracture line extends distal to the anterior flange, then I don't think this is suitable for fixation, because if you look at the fracture line going distal to the anterior flange, these are best treated with an arthroplasty. And most importantly, the tendency is to reduce the fracture with extension of the femoral component. So which is why you may find that the suboptimal that may be suboptimal results, especially in cases with these patients. This is, I think, a very good paper that was put out, and they looked at the component flexion and the condylar offset after fixation of periprosthetic distal femur fractures. And very important, after a periprosthetic fracture, the component position in about 40% patients was more than 8 degrees of valgus than what it originally was. It was extended by more than 5 degrees in almost a fourth of all patients, and in about 2/3 of the patients, the posterior condylar offset was reduced, which means that there is a high tendency for us when we are fixing them to push these fractures in extension of the femoral prosthesis, and this may ultimately affect the long-term outcome of your prosthesis. So which is why try and drape both lower limbs. You need to see the patella, you need to see the entire lower limb, and you have to make frequent checks on the coronal plane alignment and the sagittal plane alignment by making frequent CM shoots and trying to understand that you're not inducing a new deformity to try and reduce this fracture. A quick word about distal femoral replacement over fixation. I think the only difference is that the medical complications are higher in those patients who get an arthroplasty, but let us understand and not forget the fact that we are picking the easier ones. We are doing fixing. Those ones that really require distal femoral replacement are really the sick ones, so you really can't compare these two groups together. So in a nutshell, I think there's a lot of morbidity and mortality associated with them. Loose components, poor bone stock and very distal fractures, replace them. Stable components, good bone stock and fracture at or proximal to the anterior flange, osteosynthesis is the take home message.